Hey everyone, so 3.13 is finally in the PTU and there's a lot of cool new features available to try. No Starlifter yet because that's coming in a 3.13 point something patch, but for now there's still a lot to do. So today I just want to show you some of my favorite new things in case you want to hold off on updating until we get the live release, but there's a lot of fun stuff here so you might want to go and check out the PTU yourself. Before we start though, if you enjoyed this video or you just want to support the channel, please go ahead and subscribe and like the video. I really appreciate it. So the first thing I noticed when I left the Habs over here at the L19 residences over in Lorville is the performance seems to be about the same as it was with the last patch. Now most of the Gen 12 renderer features that might help improve performance are coming later this year, but they did mention that a few things were ported over to their new system, so I was thinking there was maybe a possibility for some improvement. However, the performance in the PTU is sometimes way worse than in live, so we still could see a slight performance bump in this patch anyway. From my experience though, it isn't worse, so that's a good sign at least. I also went ahead and checked out the new deal over here at the spaceport, and as you can see they've added in the Star Runner and the Nomad for purchase with aUEC. I also got to see the kinda funny glitch where they forgot to include the hammerhead that's usually on display here in the dealership. I like to think of it as someone stole it, but I'm sure it'll be back for the live version. Anyway, back to these ships, I think the prices for both of them are pretty reasonable. The Nomad offers quite a bit of utility for under 1 million credits with that rear cargo bay that can carry some vehicles and still decent combat capabilities. And the Star Runner is a pretty cool ship, so I think the near 5 million credit price tag is somewhat justified even if it's not a bargain. So yeah, this usually happens with new ships where they get added in a patch or two later, but it's nice to see this continue with these two popular ships and they're now available to earn in game. Next, I wanted to check out some of the new locations that have been added to stations to allow for ship-to-station docking in the near future. I believe this is also going to be a feature coming in a 3.13 point something patch, so hopefully these will be operational pretty soon. So these have been added to these new spires along the outside of the station, kind of like some of the landing pads are, and you can see that these are going to be able to accommodate some pretty large ships and allow for a lot of people or maybe even cargo to get on or off when that's a physical process. So yeah, these look pretty cool from the outside, and on the inside you get a nice view as well. You access them from the elevators that you usually take to go to the ship pads or hangars, and I really like these spaces. I hope they continue with this trend of adding more windows and do the same for other parts of stations eventually. One of the reasons I tend to like Port Olisar over a lot of the other stations is because with its massive windows and their placement, you can see a lot of what's going on outside. These docking areas provide that same level of visibility, and I can't wait to be in here looking out at an 890 jump sometime soon. That's going to be a really cool experience. Another cool visual change is some of the new changes to the planets and moons around Stanton. This is listed as Stanton System Polish on the roadmap, and I think that kind of undersells it. I'm not sure which of the many moons and planets were worked on, but I definitely do not remember Ariel being this detailed, and the same thing goes for Ida here as well. So this isn't a change that's going to affect the gameplay too much really, but I do wish they highlighted it a bit more. It's obvious that a lot of work has gone into making these changes and making these planets so detailed. And I had to stop and look at these moons for a few minutes. They really look amazing now, and I'm definitely going to be making some extra trips to places I usually wouldn't visit to try to see it all in the future. One pretty impactful change is the continued changes to the reputation system. So not only has the backend improved to be able to track your reputation with various individuals in a more detailed way, but there's also a new tab on the Mobiglass for it. So this just got shown off on Inside Star Citizen, and I was really excited when I saw it. The UI for this actually looks really nice, and it sure beats going to look for the one journal entry that tells you a tiny bit of information about your bounty hunting reputation by telling you what your pay bonus is. Unfortunately, I do think that I've heard that there's going to be a reputation wipe for 3.13, but I think that just had to happen since they're probably making so many changes to the system that the old data isn't compatible. But yeah, at least you'll be able to see your bounty hunting rank and other stuff as you grind out those missions to get back to that highest rank, whatever that might be for the specific organization you're working for. So for now, reputation is really only important for bounty hunting or non-legal combat missions, but in the future it's going to be pretty much involved in every part of the game, and will determine things like where you can land, who will sell you stuff, and if they'll give you a discount, and what sort of missions you'll be able to take in other professions, like cargo hauling. So I'm glad to see that this very important system now has a solid UI, and with the backend changes they've made, I hope they start adding reputation-based effects to other gameplay loops. It's really helped with bounty hunting to give it a lot more variety and depth, and I can't wait to see the same in other places. For example, we'll talk about delivery missions in a minute, but I'd love to see some scaling there as a first step, because delivery missions are pretty lacking at the moment. But you guys let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to most relating to reputation. Also, this patch has the new larger caves, and I'm happy to see some missions being implemented with caves in general. I was a bit worried when we were first hearing about them that there were just going to be some new geographical feature, and we're going to lack gameplay for a while, but they've given players on both sides of the law missions to complete here. Unfortunately, I didn't get any of the missions that took me to the new larger entrances, but I did get this one mercenary mission, and they seem like a cool new type of FPS combat mission. It definitely beats the old missions where you just went and looked for a body in the caves. So yeah, there's some actual things to do in caves now, and if you happen to find the right spot, you should be able to take vehicles in there with you, so I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for that. One change I'm very happy to see is that we're finally getting some new delivery missions, and not just new routes, but we're also getting missions that use the different cargo volatility mechanics that were introduced during Xenothreat. It seems like we're only getting the quantum-sensitive cargo for the time being, but I'm sure we'll see the impact-sensitive cargo and time-sensitive cargo at some point too. So the fact that delivery missions are getting some updates is a really big deal for people who enjoy doing some deliveries, and I think that applies to most people. I didn't used to do them all the time, but a few patches ago you could still make reasonable credits doing them, and it was very satisfying to accept and complete multiple delivery missions in a smartly planned out route. For the most recent couple of patches though, they removed this entire aspect and made the delivery missions pay out basically nothing, and they also made you deliver 3 different packages per mission, with either 3 spots to pick them up from or 3 different spots to drop them off at. So they effectively removed it from the game for a little while, and they really removed the fun aspect of being able to do multiple missions at once. So yeah, I'm definitely happy to see that delivery missions are getting some attention, but the first iterations of these missions do seem a little rough. I really hope that this mission I got here was procedurally generated and not made by a person, because for this mission I was supposed to fly 1,600 kilometers, and after doing that I'd only earned 10,000 credits. Even after exiting atmosphere, if I got to a speed of 1,000 meters per second, that would be around 30 minutes of flying. So I obviously didn't complete this mission. So I'm not sure how viable the rest of the missions are in terms of earning potential yet, but hopefully these new mission types allow them to expand the delivery system and do it in a way that's fun for players and gives you some earning potential. And I'm definitely going to be checking out the missions added in this patch more thoroughly in a future video. This patch also has some slight changes to mining with the new subcomponent system. So we've already had a bit of a preview of this sort of stuff with the mining consumables, but these new items aren't used up and they just give you a permanent effect when they're equipped on your mining head. I haven't really been mining all that much in 3.12 because of how long refinery jobs take, and also just because the bounty hunting pay is so good, but I'm definitely going to check out these new items in 3.13. They seem like a nice way to get a slight upgrade for your mining ship and are a lot more reasonably priced than the highest end mining heads, which can be pretty expensive. I also far prefer the idea of a permanent upgrade module over consumable items, but now there's options for both types, which is pretty nice. I'm not sure how much of a difference they're going to make at this point since I've only played for a couple of hours, but I'm definitely going to revisit mining in 3.13 in a future video, so get subscribed if you don't want to miss that. Another cool thing to see is the new shipware system in action. Like they've said, it's still an early version because they're going to work on adjusting the rates on how fast things wear down and how easily dirt builds up on your ship, and eventually it probably won't just go away with a repair like it's supposed to for now. And yeah, I do think it needs some adjustment because I was cruising around Daymar in the sandstorm for quite a while and I don't think I picked up any dirt at all. Once they get it working well though, I think it's going to make a pretty big difference. It's subtle, but I feel like the slight wear that you can see when walking around a ship that you've used for a while makes the verse feel a bit more alive, and it was always strange to see almost entirely shiny ships, but I think this system is a good first step to having ships be a lot more unique. One small thing I noticed is that it looks like the cameras are back for some of the communications you get in your ship from enemies, and I noticed it most frequently when being targeted by the enemies. It seems a little inconsistent though, and I didn't see this mentioned anywhere in the patch notes, so I'm not sure if they meant to enable this. Also, I just quickly wanted to show off the new slightly changed station interiors that you get at these more industrial focused stations. So I'm here at CRU L1, which has a refinery, and I know they've been calling these the non-commercial overlays, which was kind of confusing to me at first, but yeah, it's just a slight change to the interior of these stations. They have a few less ads and a few less couches, but it has the intended effect of making them look more industrial. Okay, now I want to just briefly talk about a few things not directly related to the patch. So first, CIG created a pretty funny video for April Fools, where they were talking about the supposedly upcoming Origin 404. I've got it linked below if you didn't catch that, because it was pretty entertaining, but if you look closely in the video, a lot of the footage makes it look like they were actually using a 400i model to get those shots, but they had it completely invisible. So I'm still holding out hope that we do eventually get that ship in our hands, because like I said in my video about it, I think it would be nice to have more ships in that size category, and and if they actually were using it for that video, then we might get it pretty soon. And then the next thing I wanted to mention is the ROC DS, which stands for dual seater, which I think is all but confirmed to be coming in 3.13, but it's still a leak at this point. So this new ground vehicle I think might have made a better April Fool's joke, because from what we know it's basically a ROC, and the only extra feature is that the mining laser has to be manned by a second person, and it can't be operated by the driver. Also, it's a lot wider, so it's much more inconvenient to carry around in ships, and from what I've heard, the laser on it isn't any more powerful than the normal ROC, and its storage capacity is barely any higher even. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the selling pitch is for this thing, because from what I've seen it doesn't look that appealing. So another bigger change is that in this patch, all of the shield effects are now going to be using the new sign distance field system. So this change is listed on the roadmap as only being for the shield effects, but it's been pretty much confirmed by the developers that in order for those shield effects to be in place, the sign distance field tech is actually being used for all of the shield tech, so even for stuff like damage calculations. This means that it's basically in the game, but I guess they just didn't want to list it as that because there might be issues. So we first saw this new shield tech in the last patch for certain ships like the Xenothreat Idrises, but now all ships are using this new system. So this hopefully means that shield holes are going to be a thing of the past, but I believe the reason that they didn't list it as being fully converted to this new system yet is because they want to make sure there's no edge cases with certain ships that cause problems. So it is here in this patch, but they just aren't entirely sure that it's flawless on every ship yet. This more complete validation pass on the shields is listed as coming with 3.14, so any issues we see in this update should hopefully go away by then. But in my short time in the PTU, the Connie, which was notorious for having shield holes, seemed to be a lot more sturdy. So yeah, not having any weird shield behavior is going to really help the game feel a lot more consistent and reliable, and this is a sign that we're getting close to that. So then on the topic of the Constellation, I saved the feature that I was looking forward to the most for last. So as we've all been anticipating, the first iteration of ship-to-ship docking is here, and in this version you can finally use the Constellation snub fighter, be that the Merlin or the Archimedes. Again, as a disclaimer, I've had limited time testing it, but during that time the system was actually far more robust than I expected. I figured that with two vehicles moving around and a whole new system for docking, there were going to be a lot of problems, but I was lucky to not run into any, I guess. While I didn't have any issues with the docking mechanic itself, I did have issues with having my Constellation spawn without their snub ships attached after claiming them, so it is a bit of a pain to deal with, but you can just go ahead and fix it by spawning both separately and then attaching it to it manually. But yeah, I do hope they fix this for the live version, because this takes away most of the convenience factor of having the second ship already attached. Also, I've never really gotten the chance to fly a Merlin in combat before, since it was a pain to get anywhere with no quantum drive, but I have to say it's a blast to fly, and its firepower is more than I expected. It's still not going to shred bigger ships, but you also shouldn't ignore one if it's attacking you. So anyway, I did a few missions like I was showing here, and even though using the Connie itself to take care of these would have probably made more sense, it's just a lot of fun to use the smaller snub craft. I was afraid leading up to this patch that I had overhyped myself for this feature, but even after going out, doing a mission and redocking a few times, it was still really cool to hear that docking complete message and walk back into the Connie. Also, they've actually made the functionality pretty easy to use. So to undock, all you do is press the landing gear, which is usually going to be in, and it should release you and allow you to fly away from the Constellation in your snub. Then to redock, you just target the ship you want to dock to and press in again to request permission to dock. If it's your ship, it should be granted automatically, but this also should let you dock with a different Constellation from your own if you ever somehow end up in that situation. The only thing that might need a bit of work is the UI for telling you how aligned you are, but that's not all that big of a deal, because once you get close enough, you can just hold in to automatically complete the last bit of the process, like you would with auto land on a landing pad. So overall, in my opinion, this definitely lived up to my expectations, and I'm going to be having a lot of fun flying the Merlin around whenever I can this patch. So anyway, that's all I have for this video. I'm glad we finally got this patch, and it's not even that late. So yeah, get subscribed if you want to see some of those videos that I mentioned I'm going to be doing in the future, and thanks for watching.